We are, my friend. Here we
Ah,
go.
okay. So here we are. All right. Well, good morning, Mr. Adrian Hanks.
Good morning, Mr. Tommy Gallant. How are you?
I am. I got to stop doing this, right? It's
Yeah.
like sun has not stopped shining this week on the Gold Coast. For those that are getting peeved off, that our listeners from the south of Australia or wherever it's cloudy and wintry right now, this is the place to be. It's
It certainly is, mate. It's still glorious. The water is still 20 degrees. It's a perfect swim, perfect body surf.
just a quick look out.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, yeah, as if our followers don't get enough of that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Just to rub it in a little bit,
just grab it a little bit more.
But
Yeah,
this is what the entrepreneurial life is all about, isn't it, Mr. Tommy Gallant? Sitting
it's
on the
quite
Goldie and doing our thing, running our TV show, running CAP, doing
exactly
our
right.
writing, doing our coaching, doing our other work that we're doing. And it's
Yeah,
not like we haven't earned the right to be here. We've worked damn hard to get here, right?
well, we have, and we still are.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's decisions that one makes in their life, right?
Yeah,
And there are certain sacrifices and risks that get taken in doing that.
yeah,
It's not a trip for the faint-hearted, but if you want to follow your heart, it's certainly the place to go, and it's all worth it.
yeah, yeah.
Separating that from the financial aspect.
I remember getting challenged many years ago, Tommy, by somebody about, although I worked really, really hard, I was actually running a 100-acre property back when I was working for the Gawler Foundation on the Cancer Retreat Centre.
Right.
And I sort of got challenged about why I was always so happy, even though I worked hard.
Right.
It was quite a bizarre
A
challenge.
labor of love.
Yeah. And I said, well, the more I work in my joy, the easier my work is. Of course I'm going to work in joy.
Well, then it doesn't become work, right? It becomes life. It's like
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm doing what turns me on, and even better, and if you take the practice of Ikigai,
Yeah.
we're doing the quick little intro here, obviously, of Ikigai, the Japanese philosophy, where four circles come together. It's also the other aspects there are to do something that's of value to the world that you can get paid for. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Be of service and get paid well for it.
Exactly. Vocation, everything. Anyway, look, let's get it. Let's kick this one off, Mr. Adrian Hanks or Mr.
Yeah.
Hankopoulos.
Yeah.
Do you notice the theme again today?
Yeah, mate. A bit of a hat there, a bit of a cap,
Bit of a cap on cap. This is
and is it a bit nautical, mate? Isn't it?
It's slightly nautical. You've noticed the anchor there, I can see, right?
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and the flag. So SYC, the Southport Yacht Club.
Yeah. And I believe, Tommy, this time next week, there might be something special happening. We won't say too much at the moment.
We won't say too much at the moment, but we might be coming from a venue of a difference.
Yeah,
let's just say that next week. And the clue is that mine and Mr. Hanks's love for water is the only clue we'll give.
And the hat might be a little bit into it.
Yeah, exactly, right? And we should tell people we're going to get caps.
Yeah.
The caps, so they're about to be designed up as well. As we're working on,
And of course the t-shirts and the paraphernalia, the banners and
all the swag,
all the neon lights along the Gold Coast Strip.
Exactly right. So yes.
Yeah. So tell me, Glenn, the topic for this week, mate. What have we been working on?
Right. So the topic for this week, as I look to see if we are live on mine, I can't see me, is we are going to be talking. The theme this week's been the quantum.
Absolutely.
And this has been a fascinating area for me to also be on that edge and remaining on that cutting edge and bringing that obviously to our followers and those in the CAP programs and so on. And it's the cutting edge of where medicine in the world is going. Nassam, what's his name? Hariam? Nassam Hariam, I think his name is.
Nassim.
Nassim, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. I've been watching some of his stuff lately as well. And it's really interesting now as we see science, and obviously I've been coming from the science angle more so, Adrian, that the thing's becoming pervasive even across the soulful spiritual realm that we're seeing science. And like Nassim goes very much into that. I think you called him the other day when you and I were on a call, the Einstein of the modern era. And
absolutely. And I'd even say almost like beyond Einstein. He's taken Einstein to another level.
right,
Yeah.
so Einstein 2.0, let's call
Yeah.
it.
And
Right,
it's just incredible, like absolutely incredible human being. And been following him for over a decade now myself. And
right,
if for those that want to, for a bit of a plug, I know Cap TV is the best TV channel out there, but the second best one after Cap is Gaia TV.
right,
And he's just put out a 6-series Nassim Haramein on Gaia, a free 6 series that's just come out like this week
right.
on his quantum, and really worth watching.
Okay, so guess what just happened? My Mac says 48% about 10 minutes ago, and now it's saying low battery.
Alrighty.
So here's what I'm going to do. You're going to have to give me 1 minute, entertain the team
Alrighty.
on your own, Adrian,
I certainly will, mate.
as you kick off around how this connects into the spiritual realm and the spiritual logical, as
Absolutely.
we call it, right? Between the quantum and the spiritual logical. So while you're doing a very eloquent introduction, I'm going to head backstage and
Behind the scenes.
grab the
Go.
extension cord.
Go.
Okay.
Go. Yes, everybody, what Tom is going off to do a bit of tech work because that's his role. He's the tech. He loves his tech. As Tommy said, I come from all the spiritualogical. I've been doing this now for over 30 years. I've been working with my own spiritual teachings. And what I've been following is the teachings of a teacher called Rudolf Steiner, who was actually around from 1861 until 1925. He was an Austrian philosopher, medium, spiritualist, and brought a lot of great things to the world. Agriculture in terms of biodynamics, Steiner education, medicine, movement in terms of eurythmy, and many, many other things. So I've been following that from a spiritual perspective for 30 years now and doing lots and lots of work in that space. And what Rudolf Steiner coined many, many, many years ago was this idea of bringing the scientific and the spiritual together. So he actually called himself a spiritual scientist. And I really love that phrase because, as Tommy was alluding to, when we bring the two forces together of science and spirituality, then we have a completion. It's like the yin yang is complete once we bring that together. So for me, having the spiritual base is great, but then how do we find the spirituality in the scientific and make the two not just believable but understandable? The science is quite easy because mostly when we're in the scientific realm, things are proven by some sort of fact, by what we see, what we touch. We're more in the corporeal world. We're in the 3D space with science. Whereas spirituality, we go out of the 3D space into other dimensions. And the only way to really know that spirituality is real is by the experience. And how that can be validated, and I love this validation, is by people experiencing the same thing. That's usually the only way we can validate spirituality. Because if I try to validate spirituality by what I've experienced and somebody else hasn't, for them there's no experience, there's no truth. But if I'm with Tommy and we both have a spiritual experience and we explain it to each other and there's a correlation, then just by the fact that we've experienced the same thing and I can explain and Tommy can say, well, I've experienced the same, it gives us some validation. And I'll give you a little example. I was working with a group of school children at the Steiner School down in Byron Bay. I think they were year 8 students, and we were doing nature study. So everybody had a box of crayons and an A4 piece of paper with a sketch pad, took them into the garden. We did some meditation. I said, right, we're going to draw the energy field around a living leaf. Yeah, like the etheric form around a leaf, because plants have a very strong etheric body.
What's etheric mean?
So say chi energy, if you like, or life body. It's that part of our being. When people see auras and they see that fuzzy buzz,
right?
It's the aspect of us that keeps us alive. And the immune system is very much wrapped up in that chi energy or that life body or that etheric body.
Okay.
Yeah? So it's that next body outside of the physical body,
right?
And it's the one that stores, if you like, all the lived emotions. They live in the emotional body or the etheric body. And it's an energy field that keeps us alive.
That's like your aura.
It is there's many different auras, but it's the one most people see. Yeah,
Right.
They see that fuzzy, shiny, colory, fuzzy area. And the way to explain it, Tommy, is if we look through the process of physical, then the etheric, and then what I call the soul or the astral body, and then the spiritual, so the fourfold human being.
Yep.
If you look at a crystal, for instance, a crystal is made of absolutely just 100% solid substance. There's no life force per se. It's got an energy, but it does not have an etheric body. It doesn't have a life force around it. It's not a living, breathing being like a tree or a plant. It's still got some life. It still grows.
Right.
So usually something that grows has an etheric body.
Okay.
Whereas a crystal or a stone, it doesn't grow. Well, crystals do grow, but in a different way, like in a calculated scientific way.
Right.
So going back to the plant, they have a living body. You know, people can see. So what I did with the children was we sat in a bit of relaxation for 5 minutes. 23, 24 children. They all got their crayons, and I said, I want you to gaze into the edge of a leaf and see if you can see the, if you like, the aura. I think I called it an aura for the children. And then I want you to draw it on the paper for what you see.
Right.
And then we're going to share it. And all children had almost exactly the same color space of what they saw around the leaf. The reds, the oranges, the greens, or whatever colors they had.
Wow.
And that validated it for the whole group that they all saw the same thing. Because they didn't copy each other. They all sat away, found their own bush, their own leaf. And they all saw exactly the same etheric body or life chi energy around the plant. So for me, that's enough proof.
Right. Sorry, I've got there's feedback coming back from somewhere. I don't know if you've got a volume up somewhere, but I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, just give me a second. Let me just move my phone away. It's not off. I'll move it.
Maybe just might need to turn down the volume or something. So it's really interesting then how you talk about the connection piece too, like two people like spiritually connecting.
Yeah.
What are they actually feeling? And then I want to take this to let's say in a corporate environment context as well.
Yeah.
And how that can be used.
All right. So for instance, Tommy, if you and I did some training in reading energy.
Yeah.
And then we both could explain what we see. And if we explained individually to two different people in two different rooms, and they wrote down what we saw and come back together and said, this is what Tommy saw and this is what Adrian saw, and it was the same, surely that's validation that it's real.
Oh, wow.
Because two people can't really make up the same, story.
Yeah.
So for me, it's validation when a number of people, and oftentimes what I'll do if I'm in that spiritual space, particularly around things like mediumship and people who have and go beyond in that space.
Right.
If they can validate what I already know from maybe somebody else I've had a conversation with, then I usually know that they're kosher. I know they're real. If they can't validate certain things for me, so I've got a certain set of questions I will ask a seer or a medium in that space to make sure that they're real, that they're actually kosher mediums, because a lot of people it's a bit of a spiritual supermarket out there. So I've got a certain particular way of gauging the reality of whether it's real for me.
Right.
So when we go into that quantum space, particularly around energy, I think it's really important to get that validation so that we can make it factual for people who maybe haven't stepped in that space before, to give them a solid foundation to begin with. Because if we go a bit airy-fairy, if we go to woo-woo straight away, we lose people.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to do is lose people. So I really start on the physical, and I'll do things like nutrition, for instance.
Right.
If you get a really nice piece of fruit or a nice piece of food that's just commercially grown, full of chemicals, and then you get a really great, beautiful, biodynamic piece of fruit that's got vitality, it's got energy, and just get people to close their eyes and bite into one and bite into the other, and just get them to feel and taste and smell to get the senses going. So I start on the physical senses before I do any spiritual work with anybody, to give them a sense of going beyond, because a lot of people don't even have a sense of taste, not a great one. So just doing some exercises around the senses, the 5 major senses, getting the taste buds moving, getting the hearing, getting the sight. I just sat and watched a documentary tonight with my mastermind partner Barry, who's putting a new documentary on sight, 2020 vision.
Right.
And how many people really take time to get a sense of what are they really seeing? what's your peripheral vision? You know, if you can practice, like I've got a peripheral vision that's just beyond 180 degrees.
Yep.
You know, because I practice a lot of, you know, if you like, spiritual work. I've got more of an awareness around beyond just the tunnel vision.
Right.
Taking myself out of tunnel vision, I've expanded myself, if you like, into that idea of something spiritual. So of course, then on a physical level, that has an impact on my physical seeing.
Okay.
You know, so when we start to practice spiritual work and get into that quantum space, the first important thing is to understand that the inner world and the spiritual world is as real as the corporeal 3D world. That's the first thing that the mind has to get to, because if we don't, it just becomes fantasy land.
Well, yeah, and so many people, based on their belief system, they're going to find it hard. Well, and also if you haven't expanded your mind to think about this concept, it takes a bit of time it's a little mind bending.
Yeah.
When you start talking about quantum physics or quantum medicine, you know, I could put a post on a wellness and psychological connected post yesterday with regards to the quantum, because it's where it starts to go. I mean, anything quantum based, you're going to have to be going up through your mind to connect into it, right?
So, Tommy, the highest form of spirituality is thinking.
Right.
I'm going to say that again for people to get, because a lot of people think the intellect or thinking is not spiritual. And I'm going to say something perhaps a bit controversial for some people who, you know, are more, you know, think spirituality is all about the heart and the soul, but
yeah,
conscious thinking is the highest form of spirituality.
Conscious thinking. So are you talking about, because you know you've got those two situations. You've got the thinking where your brain is busy at work doing stuff, but then you've got this other thing, which I think we call consciousness or the awareness level, that's looking at that.
Yeah, I would call that the intellectual soul, if you like. You know, we're coming from the intellect, but it's from a soul perspective, not a frontal, you know, cortex brain thinking. There's a difference between brain thinking, for me, and an intellectual soul or spirit thinking. So for me, that's where I can allow myself to enter my spiritual thinking, to think beyond the 3D.
Okay, and that's where you start through there. Is that the channel through to start to connect to the quantum?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because the thing with spirituality is, you know, there's a in terms, I'm going to get a bit esoteric here if you like, but in terms of safe spiritual work, and I'm not talking about going off to some ayahuasca ceremony for the weekend in the bush, because that's, you know,
that's become trendy now. It's cool to do that now.
Yeah, mate. You know, I won't swear on here, but it's that thing that you've got on your head with a W in front of it. You know, like that's from my perspective. You know.
I don't know. I'm going to give it a go at some stage to see what's all the fuss about. You know. But,
but don't go in there thinking it's spiritual, because it's a big furphy from my perspective.
Well, I mean, it's mind altering and biochemically mind.
It's mind altering, but is it spiritual? Well, there's a whole. I can talk on that for hours and about. That being a soul experience, not a spiritual experience.
Right.
But what happens in what I would call safe, honored spiritual teachings is there's a particular threshold that one has to cross over to get to the spiritual world. And in all traditions, that's been done safely with a guide, with a guru, you know, with a shaman, or with what in ancient times that they called a hierophant. Who would help the initiate, the person going through it, to safely cross that threshold after many years of preparation. Many years.
Okay.
Many years of preparation. So a lot of me is, you know, for every 5 years of spending preparation, there's a slight step into the spiritual world. So it takes time. Personally, this is my path, is to go safely into the spiritual world, because the analogy I use, Tommy, to bring it back to the 3D is when we go snorkeling, we snorkel. But if you want to go scuba diving, you go and have lessons, you go and get trained, you go down, 3 meters, then you go and do another lesson, you go down 6, and then you go 9 and 12, progressively learn to go down, because it gets more challenging and even dangerous.
Right.
And for me, if you reverse that out of the physical into the spiritual, it's no different than going through the spiritual realms. Because if the spiritual world is real, and I'm gonna start on that basis, for me it's real. So that's my juncture of entry.
Well, science is starting to say it's real.
Yep. So it must be,
Yeah.
I saw it on Google the other day, so it must be real.
That's be right.
But so my starting point there is, if I'm going to go into that realm and I'm going to start to meet spiritual beings or spiritual energies, I have to be prepared for that.
Right.
Because if I'm not prepared and I meet some mighty being, some archangel or some exousiai or some being, and I'm not prepared, that's going to be pretty scary. If I meet the being of fear, or if I meet the being of doubt, I mean, pretty big beings from my perspective.
Right. So
if I don't have the preparation to meet that, and this is what often happens when people go and do things like ayahuasca and other things.
Right.
They have an experience, and it's too overwhelming even for the mind to contemplate, and they blow their circuits and end up in a psych unit. Jeez. The psych units are full of people who've had spiritual experiences, like full of them.
This is really interesting. I was listening to a documentary last night, and they had a number of people in there. Nassim, her name was in there, and then David Icke dropped in, and whatever. And David Icke actually explained it pretty well, more for the lay person, so it was easier for me to consume mentally. That because everything is, as we've said many times before, energy, frequency, vibration.
Yep.
That even when you're seeing ghosts, when ghosts are sighted, they are still a soul. Like you have a soul using your body as an antenna, but they are in a different frequency, in a different dimension. So what you're saying is that as you start to go up these beyond the third three-dimensional structure world that we live in, that we sense with our five senses, starting to go into a different gaming level, right, up into 4 and 5, you better be ready and armed to be able to handle what you're going to find in 4 and 5, right? And I think it's 12 dimensions in total, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, there's it depends on what tradition one follows. There's many different ideas of what the levels are. For some, it's 33. The 33 degrees of masonry is based on that, etc.
Right.
So there's lots of different levels of initiation or going through. But each one, for me, is like an initiation. One has to do a practice to get through a certain realm, and in spiritual practice, there are beings, if you like, or entry points called guardians, and one has to do the work to meet the guardian, to have sufficient preparation for the guardian to be able to open that entry point to let us to the next level. So there are safeguards in place.
Wow. Okay.
And for me, when I understand that, and I can do my traversing safely into the spiritual world, and I meet those guardians, if I'm not prepared, they won't let me in. It's like the Three Little Pigs is the greatest esoteric story on the planet. If you want to listen to an esoteric story, listen to Three Little Pigs.
Three Little Pigs. Okay.
Yeah. They build a house.
Right.
So they're strong. They start with steel, then sticks, and then bricks.
Right.
Because that represents the body, the mind, and the spirit.
Oh.
What they're trying to stop in is the negativity, which is based as the wolf. Same as St. Francis of Assisi, he talks about the wolf.
Yep.
The wolf is the shadow, if you like, or the other aspect of our being that we need to keep out, so that we can be in that safe container, so we can traverse into the space. So because what I'm letting go of to go into that place, I'm letting go of my physical body. I'm lifting myself out of my physical body, because you can't take a spiritual body a physical body into the spiritual world.
Right.
I have to become spirit to go into spirit. So
Right.
I have to loosen my spirit from my body.
Yep.
And what travels into the spiritual realm is my spirit.
Right.
And then traditionally what will happen is we go out on the golden thread, if you like, or there's many names for it, with the Hierophant or with the teacher. And these days we can do it by ourselves with the right training, where it's like a kite. The kite goes off, and depending how much string we let off, the kite goes to a certain height. And spiritual journey is the same. And I'd say to people, make sure you've got a string around your belly or around your legs.
Right.
So that you can bring yourself back.
You want to be tethered.
Yeah, because if you don't, there's a lot of loose cannons out there, mate, have gone out and they haven't come back.
Can you tell us of I mean, we'll swing this back around to the business environment in a moment, but of an experience that you've had or witnessed or heard about that was like pretty freaky for someone having their first time into the spiritual realm?
Yeah, I've some. I have several clients over the years, and a couple of current ones who've had situations like that where they've had a wake up. One of my favourites is quite interesting. It was actually in Brisbane. I'm in Brisbane at the moment, and let's say he's a tradie. I won't even say what trade he's in because I don't want to give it away in case he's listening in.
Yeah.
A tradie. He goes to get something out the back of his vehicle to go and do a job, say on a Monday morning at 9 a.m. and suddenly has this moment where he just freezes, has an awakening. That's his description of something moved through him. And this is a blokey bloke tradie.
Right.
Never really done much spiritual, sort of maybe it picked up a book, The Power of Now, maybe, Eckhart Tolle or something like that, but never really gone off and done much. And then he knew somebody, so they said, I'll go and contact Adrian. He phoned me as a mate. He said, the only way I can explain, he said, I had something move through me. I had a bit of a shift, an awakening or a buzz to my body. And he said, now I'm feeling spiritual. And I'm telling you, this is happening to people all over the planet.
Yeah, it is, right.
All over the planet. People they're feeling something,
yep,
but they don't know what it is because unfortunately in our Western system, spirituality has become
we've become preoccupied.
Bit woo-woo, it's become woo-woo for people.
Well, well, there's been a lot of programming and conditioning in the system, right? And many systems that have been constructed by whoever, whatever. But regardless, that's what's happened, and our awareness level hasn't grown to connect into other things because it's so distracted. And then, of course, the ego's in there, keeping us from connecting in as well to ourselves through our mind to the quantum.
Yeah, totally. And if we go back to that posit that everything is energy, everything is connected, we are one.
Yeah.
Which is really hard to entertain, by the way, in the mind.
In the beginning, it is. And, it's taken me really probably this year to really start to knuckle down on understanding how does that work. And I think this is where Nassim Hariam.
Nassim Haramein, yep.
Yep, is like, he explains it, but whoa, you gotta rewind and play it a few times to understand what the hell he's talking about. Because our brains have really, in general, never been there for those that are not spiritually connected or aware. It's like, hey, let's think about this. How does that work? And how does that piece? It's totally new for 90, 99, I don't know, % of the planet right now.
Yeah. And Tommy, so is driving a car before we've driven a car.
Right. Right.
So is operating a computer before we've operated a computer.
Right. It's new. We're like babies to the.
It's new, but the thing a lot of people don't do, they don't do the practice.
Yeah, right.
Like I know a lot of people who want to meditate, and I teach meditation.
Yeah.
And I said the greatest gift that you can do to meditate is to find a meditation practice. That's why it's called a practice.
Right.
Because for me, meditation never becomes complete.
Oh God, no.
Because there's always another level. So it's always the practice. But if it's like a lot of things, if you don't practice the muscle, it'll atrophy or just die.
Well, yeah, and it's the first time you become to build it up, right? But it's the first time you actually become aware of the fact that your mind is so busy thinking about, let's take a work thing. It's not even work. People on the planet, the to-do list is long, and the firefighting list of your life, right? And the way that things have been constructed, all these human constructs, to kind of actually keep you in that state and that competitive state, from the Joneses next door to the boss and the expectations and, oh my God, COVID-19 and all these other fears. You're preoccupied in there. You can't teach a drowning person how to swim either. But you notice that when you meditate, you go, another thought. Okay, don't judge it. Don't put yourself down. It's a cloud, use the cloud metaphor. It's passing through. Now let's go back. But it's those little gaps in between the cloud where you start to connect into yourself and, I would say the spiritual and the quantum, right?
Yeah. And at that moment, what we do in, let's talk about meditation for a moment.
Yeah.
What happens in that space, Tom, is we open ourselves up for possibility. And the possibility being that we may tap into something else. So I say to people, don't expect anything in meditation, but there's a possibility that you may experience something new. And if you do, just allow the experience to unfold.
Right.
Just allow it to unfold, and then go back into the experience tomorrow and allow the experience to unfold, and go back the next day and let the experience unfold. And if you do that for 7 days, the experience will grow. Right. If you do it for a year, the experience will grow. If you do it for 10 years, of course, the experience will grow. So I've been meditating now for 22, 23 years, solidly for probably 15, 16. And my meditation experience is still a practice. Yeah. I still get the chattering monkeys.
Yeah.
I still get, the jitters. I still get the frustrations.
Right.
But when I'm in, I now go deeper because of the practice.
Right.
So it's never 100% easy for me.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like I just sit and bang, I'm in. It's like, no, I'm still human. My mind is still busy.
Yeah.
My mind still fights it. My mind still questions it. My logical mind doesn't want to go to that place sometimes because of whatever's going on in my subconscious mind.
Right.
But the important part for me is I practice it because I know the benefits.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I know when I'm in that space, I go quantum.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's the easiest access to go into quantum is to be still.
To be still.
Yeah.
Be still.
Totally.
Get rid of all the other. I mean, you've got those distractive thoughts. If they weren't there, then you're pretty well going to have the door open to go there or be there, right?
Yeah. Well, the doorway that stops us going in is the mind.
Yeah. Right.
Because if we can't get out of the mind, we can't drop into soul.
Right. Right.
And we need to engage with the soul feelings to begin with, to understand, one, to let go of the thinking, to let go of the feelings. Yeah. Because in the spiritual world, there are no feelings, there are no thoughts.
Right.
It's a whole nother paradigm.
So can you explain the difference between soul and spirit?
Yeah. So from my tradition, where from the language I've learned through anthroposophy, is the soul is the place where the emotions and the feelings live.
Right.
Yep. So all my soul experiences is a feeling experience, which is not 3D. If you like, it's 4D. We go a little bit beyond, because you can't pick up a feeling. You can't tangibly hold a feeling.
Right.
So it's in another realm.
And it could be a negative or a positive.
But how do I know a feeling is real?
Right.
It could be an illusion. Well, the reason I know a feeling is real because other people share similar feelings, and when we discuss them, they're the same. So it validates the feeling.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just a subjective idea that could be just a construct that I've put together that I feel happy. Well, what does that mean? Well, I know what happy means because we can discuss it and come to the same conclusion what happiness is. So we have the same label for it. So when I'm in happiness, I can't go and buy a bag full of happiness from the shop. Like, it's not tangible.
Right.
So it's beyond 3D. Okay. But then I have to let go of the feeling of being happy, because happiness doesn't exist in the spiritual world. For me, when I'm in my spirit, I'm devoid of feeling. I'm devoid of my story. I'm devoid of my ego. I'm not taking it with me. But in the soul, when I'm doing my soul work, I'm purely in my emotions.
Right.
Purely in my emotions.
And these could be, emotions. It could be positive or negative, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. Yep. And conscious and unconscious.
Right. Right. Because some of them are in the subconscious, and some of them are.
Well, the layers of the soul are so deep. If you like, 7 layers of the soul. How many we got? Some of those experiences, and I'll give you an experience. What can happen to somebody in childhood if they could have a trauma?
Yep.
Yep. What happens is it gets buried so deep in the soul that it can be forgotten. And then what happens when I do my psychotherapy and I'm working with somebody on some past trauma, the memory will pop up, not from the mind, but from a particular sound or particular smell or particular movement of the body.
Right.
That will reactivate the soul memory, and then what happens, it goes from the soul memory into the thinking memory, and people go, oh, I remember what happened, but the reality is they haven't remembered it from here, they've remembered it from a soul feeling.
Okay.
Yeah. They've remembered it from, if you like, a quantum space, and then they brought it into the memory space.
Or it could be sitting in your subconscious, couldn't it? And it's come out of there.
Yeah, but usually it gets activated by having a soul experience.
Right.
Yeah. So it stays in the subconscious mind as an experience, but the feeling it's been locked away in the what I call the soul body.
Right. Okay. So the memory,
and it gets reactivated.
So the memory is up here, but you're feeling it down here in your gut.
Totally. Yeah.
It's visceral.
So I'll do a bit of psychotherapy with somebody saying, we need to go back to a bit of childhood to clear up an old story, because you keep replaying it in your life. And so what I do with somatic therapy, go into the body, feel it, and then when they feel the memory, they go back into the body gesture, the memory.
Right.
And then it reactivates something, and they go, and then we step out, and then we physically go back and look at the imprint that's been left in the quantum field, if you like.
Yep.
And that imprint is sitting in the quantum field. And when I'm in my therapy studio working with people, and they've stepped and they've seen something in the past, maybe it's been hidden for a while, that thing that imprint they've left in that quantum space, in that etheric space or energy space, is so real, people will walk around it. Like, it's so tangible, it's so real for them.
The energy is like...
They can paint it, they can draw it, they can see it, they can tell you every aspect, they can tell you, what they look like in that space. They can tell you what clothes were worn in that space. Like it's just that quantum memory field. We all have the ability to go back to the quantum field. And I think what's happening so much in the quantum field is, from a historical perspective of humanity, 60,000 years old, we knew all this stuff.
Right.
60,000 years ago. And what's happening now, people are tapping back into that quantum field, if like some people call it the Akashic record, or the Akashic library.
Right.
We tap into that quantum field, which is an energy, and it's full of knowledge. And when we open ourselves into that quantum space, so the stuff that Nassim's bringing down and Einstein brought down, and like, it's not new.
Right, it's not new.
It's just they've found the ability to tap back into that knowledge.
Right. Well, and people now are, it seems that the human race is at a point where it's starting to make that transition from a mainstream point of view. This is what I'm starting to see from the information sources that are coming to me, be it from the quantum. But all right, now, if we turn this around and go, okay, fine. And let's say I'm a business owner or an exec or whatever, and I've got a lot of stuff coming at me, right? My personal life, but also very much in the business life, because I've got a very important role. How is that going to help me get my numbers in the current way of thinking? The current
Great question, Tommy, because when one starts the day with a meditation or finds space in the day, one thing that I know meditation does, and I work with hundreds of clients with this, is it reduces stress.
Right.
Absolutely, like scientifically proved. Like there's just it's. And I'm not just going to talk about scientific proof. Go meditate for 7 days, and you'll experience it.
Right.
So it must be real.
Right.
So that's one thing. It reduces stress.
Yeah.
It actually creates more time. If we go into the relativity idea of time with Einstein, and he says, time is a human construct. And it is, the 8-hour day is a construct. But if we allow ourselves to understand, and we spoke about this last week, space, and we get a sense of being in space, we create a new reality and understanding about time and space. So when I can be in a 5-minute meditation, deep meditation, and it can feel like a week.
Right.
Because there's no time in the spiritual world.
Right, there is that time.
And I'm having a taste. I'm not purely in spirit world and meditating, but I'm pretty close, if I'm doing a short meditation. But when I'm in that space for 5 or 10 minutes, my body, because the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and fiction, it doesn't know that I've only been there for 5 minutes.
Right.
Great point.
It
just doesn't. So I can come back totally relaxed, totally full of energy,
Yeah.
from 5 minute, quantum meditation. And then, of course, I'm able to engage in my work or my business
Yep.
with a new energy, with a new consciousness, with a renewed vigor, with a sense of presence, less stress. So my tasks will be better, which means, the triple bottom line is going to be better because I'm less stressed and I'm more focused.
More productive, more in a state of flow. You get into a peak flow state through that gateway, in essence.
Yeah, and I'm with my staff or my workers or my partners in a better state of being.
The waveform will continue on.
My spiritual antennas awake, so I'm going to be downloading more information that's useful for my business.
Yeah.
And I've got quite a few exercises I work with individuals and business owners in terms of bringing those questions, if you like, from the spiritual world or from the quantum space, where we can write down a thought, an idea, a question, an issue, a challenge, and go into a meditative space and download information to get the answer. A bit like a mastermind, a spiritual mastermind group.
So this is really interesting because you see, a lot of leaders that have already worked this out, they've got such a huge responsibility, a lot coming at them, but they stay in that, in effect, peak flow state, which is the result of it back into the 3D world, where you become so much more productive because you're not panicking, you're not in that fear state, you're not in any, you're just connected. You're connected, and you're connected perhaps to your people, you're connected to what's going on, but you are not allowing those crazy thoughts that are coming in. So, oh my God, this could be happening. What if this happens? And this is when you start to go, like you said, out of the present, the past or future. And that's hence time being a human construct and a mind construct where, to go into the future, you have to think about it. To go into the past, you have to think about it. To be here, which is the only moment we have right now, you don't have to think about any of that. And so time disappears. And when you're in that zone state, I know when, like go-kart racing, okay? And I love it, and I'm not too bad at it, right? And I get just totally focused, which is about meditation too, right? It's getting focused, one singular focus, nothing else. I'm not thinking about anything else but that car that's in front of me, right? And I'm thinking, I'm strategizing on where am I going to take them and which corner. I'm totally zoned in, and it feels peaceful there.
In the zone.
In the zone, right? And you're just unflappable. You're locked. So manifesting that in a workplace environment would be freaking amazing.
And that obviously keeps us in the 3D space by doing that. When we're focused on the 3D. So we're bringing in an unblocking of something potential that's going to block us from creativity or work, and that is clearing the mind. Which is, I still keep in the world of 3D to some degree because we're still in the senses. When we then take that into the quantum field and we want to download information to run a business in the quantum, what I'd suggest is happening there is we're getting information from upstairs, from other energies or other beings or energy forces or any other fields.
Cosmic activity that's going on as well.
Cosmic
frequency,
cosmic activity. And when we bring that down, we heighten the charge of the 3D. So we blend, we bring a bit of extra electricity, if you like, into the 3D world to give ourselves a bit of spark. And you can see that in a lot of innovative businesses where they're obviously working, beyond the realms of just thinking and logic. And they're starting to create some pretty amazing new ideas that, for me, can only come from, if you like, spirit, because they're beyond what could be imagined in the 3D. So we're back.
This ain't hippie talk.
So we're back to 3D thinking or quantum thinking again. And I'm suggesting in business, when we get to that space, and an example of that, Tommy, would be, we've spoken about this before, is and let me just grab it because I've got it here.
Okay. So the quantum. And
No, it's lost in the quantum field. I thought
it's gone into a black hole.
Going into a black hole.
Yeah.
But just the idea of measuring things in a quantum way rather than with logic, like with muscle testing. We spoke about dyes and rods with pendulum. Now, what is that?
They're following electromagnetic waveforms, aren't they? Or...
Well, what we're doing is letting go of the mind and trusting intuition. Because whether it's dowsing rods or whether it's pendulum muscle testing, it's basically what it is. It's a 3D representation, of a higher knowing. Because the mind needs to be able to see something tangible that makes it real. Like, when people hold the rods,
it needs to be coming in through these fellas.
Yeah, because they cross, we go, it must be real because my senses, my 3D senses, my sense of sight, will logically allow that to be real because it fits my paradigm.
There we go. And
because when one goes beyond needing the rods, can walk in the paddock and just feel where the water is underneath.
That's crazy, right?
But if I had a client and I said, well, I'm going to come and find some water for you, that's with my dowsing rods for bore water, which is what, by the way, how they find bore water in Australia. They actually get the dowsers out there with the dowsing rods.
Totally.
They get paid, and they'll tell you where it is, how deep it is, what sort of rock is underneath it, what sort of water's under there. And there's been no scientific measurement. Now, if I didn't have my dowsing rods and I just walked into a paddock and said to somebody, your water is 144 feet down, and you're going to go through 3 different rock sediments and you're going to find it, and they didn't see my rods, they think I was a fruitcake.
Yeah, right.
But because there's something tangible in my hands, it's real.
So isn't that crazy? We've got some of these crossovers that exist today, and they seem to be acceptable. If you've got the rods there, and you could even be not faking it, because they should be actually crossing over where you're going, right? Or however it works.
Oh, yeah, they work.
Right. So that seems to be acceptable. And even from a business context, to get one of those guys on your farm to go and find it, and, it's like getting psychics at a murder scene, that we seem to be kind of okay with. And in fact, we should be, because these guys find water.
Yeah, but take the rods away.
Right?
Take the rods away.
Oh, what are you, crazy? You're like telepathic, like...
Because I'll tell you why, Tommy, the biggest thing probably from this, and I'm going to throw this out to anybody who's in the business space, or not in space even, is the thing that we need to hold on to is safety. Because if I've got the rods, people feel safe in their minds.
Right.
As soon as I take the rods away, there's an element of fear.
It doesn't become believable.
There's no it becomes unbelievable. There's no safety.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So we have to believe.
Yeah.
And so a big threshold for a lot of people in the quantum space is the idea of belief.
Right.
Biology belief, Dr.
Bruce Lipton, right?
We have to believe that something's real, because the mind needs to know it's real.
Yeah.
And
with the years and whatever.
So the biggest challenge of anything quantum is we have to let go of the idea. Yeah.
Right.
We have to let go of the idea of being safe sometimes. We've got to take a risk to go into the quantum space.
So then if I bring that into, let's say, the corporate world, it's like we're going to do something we've never done before.
Yeah.
Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Nobody's ever done that.
Yeah. And I'll share something with you, Tommy, that I do in group work is I get 2 people to stand face to face.
Yeah.
2 meters apart, COVID safe.
Yeah.
And then one of them will stand still and just relax.
Yeah.
And I get them to get a sense. I say, just imagine where the edge of your energy field might be. Just imagine it.
Right.
And nearly every time, of course, people allow themselves to, and they actually feel it. They actually go to the very point of it because they're just imagining, and the imagination's real. And then the other person starts to walk towards the other person. And I say to the person who's still, when you feel them at the edge of your energy field, put your hand up and stop them stepping in. And I've never had anybody ever in one workshop not put the hand up and stop somebody walking in an energy field.
Right.
And I say, so is your energy field real or not? He said, yeah, I felt them step into my energy field.
Right.
And yet it's not, you can't see it.
Yeah, you can't see it.
It's in another realm.
Just because you
And
can't see
in
it.
business,
Yeah.
In communication, when we're in business, communication is 99% of business.
Yeah.
If we're in somebody's energy space, yep, and even unconsciously, subconsciously, what will happen in that space is we go into the fight, flight, yeah, syndrome.
Yep.
Because what happens in that space, if people aren't feeling confident, safe, secure,
Yeah.
in that space, what happens is most of the communication's missed because the 3D human wants to either fight or flight.
Yeah.
So we set up something called antipathy, yeah, or sympathy in that space,
Yeah.
energetically in the soul.
Right.
And the soul starts to feel whether there's a warming to that person, which is sympathy, or a coolness, which is antipathy.
Right.
Yeah, which if we extend that is love or hatred. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And we'll do two things. As soon as we meet somebody, we'll have a sympathetic or an antipathetic connection.
Right.
And that's not the mind, that's the soul.
That's the soul. Interesting.
And people feel that. And I say to people, when you feel that gut feeling, that's the beginning of understanding that there's something beyond the physical into the quantum.
Right. Can't explain it. I just feel it.
Feel it. So let's start
for you. I can't give you a justification for it. I just feel it. Now, this is where the business world struggles too.
Yeah.
Right.
So as you and I know with the cap, what we're trying to do, and this is why we bring this, we're trying to bring the soul back into business, because we're not trying to bring the spirit into business, because that's too much. It's like, that's like scuba diving before we've snorkeled.
Yeah, right.
So let's get the feeling into business. Let's use the language.
If
people can feel in business. When you're having a business meeting, can you feel that sympathy and antipathy?
Yeah.
To begin with, that's a great place to begin. So what I'd say to people who want to take their business to another level, start with the feeling soul realm.
Right.
Start to feel beyond the five senses. We work with 12 senses in anthroposophy that we can explain on another show. And one of them is the sense of the other.
Right. Yes.
Can I sense the person next to me from a soul feeling?
Yeah. And that empathy.
Yeah.
And then, without getting too mushy over it, I mean, it's called love, and love is a broad term to use, but when you're using empathy, compassion, and, these sorts of things, these sorts of emotions, then you're connecting in.
Yeah. And then non-tangible emotions, that's the reality of the soul. It's not, you can't grasp it.
Yeah.
So already that's the doorway to spirituality. That's the doorway to the quantum.
Right.
So let's not take somebody from here and try and drop them into, the black hole or, the torus field or some planetary sphere that, the Elohim and blah, blah, blah. Let's do this step by step.
Yep.
And let's start with soul. Let's start with the idea that perhaps my business can form a soul.
Right.
And then when people are ready, if they want to go and, jump into the black hole, they can. But it's crazy. For me, it's a bit like, going off and doing ayahuasca without doing the training. Like it's pretty pointless and dangerous.
Right. Yeah.
Because any shaman worth his salt would not do that to a student.
Right.
Because they haven't prepared them. Like any shaman anywhere on the planet.
Yeah.
And I've met a lot of shamans in my time, Western and Eastern and African.
Right.
And they will not take somebody on a journey unless they know they've done the training.
Right.
It's irresponsible. Yep. It's dangerous. It's ego driven.
Yeah. Right.
And it might be a bit controversial for any, people in that space, but I don't mind speaking my truth around it. So, and I think it's the same with us, Tommy. If we're going to be leaders in the corporate space, we're going to be leaders in the business space, we have to be responsible for how we become the teacher or the
guide,
teacher or the guide.
Yep.
And not just picking somebody up and dropping them in a black hole, because that's irresponsible. It's crazy, and I don't want to work from that ego space.
Well, this is where the care, compassion, you want to call it love, it comes under that definition.
Yeah, it does.
And forgiveness and being. I mean, that's true That is true leadership.
Yeah.
Today, it's not like we're the Spartans fighting back in the battlefield in the old
Yeah.
days.
But we can take that in as well if we need to, eh?
Well, we can, we can.
Bit of Greek energy, mate. I'm sure the Greek will come out of me.
Yeah, there's still some epigenetics there that have gone back a few generations.
Yeah. I've still got the warrior, don't worry.
Yeah, I know that too.
A friend of mine says to me, Adrian, he said, do you realise how scary you look sometimes?
You could. As I said, it's like people that don't know you look like, who is it in the band? Is it the Red Hot Chili Peppers? Flea.
Yeah, you keep talking about I haven't got a clue you're talking about.
You got to dress up like that one day, right? With getting the Flea outfit on and the guitar and just being a bit crazy.
That's why I've learned to smile a lot, Tommy, because when I'm smiling, I don't look as
so scary. You're the romper stomper.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're going to bring this around. We've been on for like an hour and 12 minutes here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. In the zone, right?
In the zone, in the quantum.
There we go.
There is no time in the quantum field.
There is no time. Yeah, when you're present, there is no time.
Yeah.
So, okay, and look, coming up over the next 4 weeks, the theme changes.
Yeah.
We're going to do a bunch of cues, not far cues, but it will be IQ we got coming up. What's the next one?
EQ.
And then we've got RQ.
Yep.
Kind of become funky now for those that don't know. That's kind of the now, which is relationship quotient, kind of relevant to the discussion we just had. And then what are we doing, Adrian?
I think we're doing some SQ, aren't we?
We're doing some SQ. Are you going to go the soul or the spirit on that one?
I think we're going to go spiritual.
Spiritual quotient?
I think we'll do a little bit of meditation training in that one and get people in that quantum space, in that spiritual space. But same again, Tommy. We're doing it sequentially.
Yeah.
From the mind, the emotions,
yep,
through to the spirit, because we can't drop people straight into the spiritual space without preparation.
They'll pull an emotional hammy.
Yeah, absolutely. And and there are millions of them in psych units all over the planet.
Wow, it's crazy. Oh, literally. I mean, it's
really are. Like most people in psych units are, from my perspective, my understanding, are there because they've had a spiritual experience, not a psychotic experience.
Right. And
there's a big difference, but it's labeled psychotic because most psychologists aren't spiritually trained. They're they're
right. So they'll put this different label on it.
Yeah, from what they know, no disrespect to those in that profession.
Yeah, but well intended.
But because we don't have spiritual leaders on the planet that people can go, or not many, there are some, where people can go to.
Yeah.
There's a choice sometimes. I go and see a spiritual healer or a psychologist.
Yep.
And a psychologist will often say, it's a psychotic episode, whereas a spiritualist say you've had a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
There's just a different label.
Okay.
One will usually medicate, one won't.
Right. Medicate with your meditate, as you would say.
Yeah. I say, my medicine is my meditation.
Yeah. Your medication is your meditation.
Yeah. Absolutely. 15 years of meditation. I don't take bottle tablets. I just meditate.
Right. There it is. The organic way.
Yeah.
The art.
Mate, let's give this a
give it the wind up.
Quantum wrap up.
A quantum landing. Landing in the quantum. So for people to reach out for you and your particular program, apart from the fact that we obviously have this collaboration on the becoming famous, the Corporate Alchemist project.
Yeah.
How do they reach out to you, Adrian?
So, Tommy, the best way for people to reach out to me is on my website, adrianhanks.com.
Okay.
And particularly if you want to go to the media page, there's some free videos on there on how to meditate, etc. Some interviews on there on different quantum and different ideas and thoughts, and lots of things to read. There's a couple of pages in there on anthroposophy and the path to Steiner.
Okay.
My new book is also advertised on there.
Yes, I was going to ask you that. Yeah. So that's getting closer. I saw some of the covers on limited edition covers. I want one of those. And signed by the man. What's the date? August the
14th. We're launching here on the Goldie. We're launching in Australia with the book on the 14th because I can do that from a perspective of launching here first, and then we'll look about globally afterwards. But the launch is in Australia, August 14th. There is a book launch, 100 tickets because of the restrictions. So if you're on the Goldie or close, you want to come, yeah, www.adrianhanks.com. Go and pre-order your books, get your tickets, but also check out the spiritual quantum work that I'm doing. And I do one-on-one work, and I've also got programs as well, Tommy.
Yep, terrific. Myself as well, if people want to reach out. So, by the way, you've got 99 tickets left because one of those belong to me.
Yeah.
Biotechexec.net for the Biotech Exec program, and there's an executive lifestyle assessment on there, and that comes to me, and you'll get some results back on how you fare amongst other executives as we're getting more and more people on that, and you'll find it very interesting on the information of the areas of stress, being on purpose, and energy levels tend to be the three that come up that are somewhat depleted. So that's what we're looking to change the biotechexec.net program. So apart from that, the CAP TV is not only here on Facebook Live, but it is on the other platform. It starts with
LI,
the LI platform. Let's see if the algorithm can identify that. It's like 5G. Head out there if you want. And if also have the Corporate Alchemist group, if you look that up on the other platform and you're an executive, then we'll open the little shutter door and do our little speakeasy of fame in there, and the fun that we're starting to have with the amount of posts that we put in there around the 7 days of the week on the Monday Move It. And then?
Tasty Tuesday.
Yeah,
Wellness Wednesday. Yeah, Thoughtful Thursday.
Freedom Friday.
Social Saturday.
And this one's yours. I'll give it to you.
Soulful Sunday.
Soulful Sunday. All right, guys. Well, that's a wrap. We will see you on the next one on Monday. By the way, I'm getting interviewed today at 4:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time by the famous Aldwin Altony. And look out for that. That'll be on my profile and a few other streams that will be coming to you. And look forward to seeing you on there as I get drilled this time. So thanks again, Mr. Adrian Hanks.
Thank you, Mr. Tommy Glad. See you very soon, mate.
We will. Have a great weekend up in, where are you going? You're up to Noosa, yeah?
Heading up to Noosa, mate. Going to go and do a bit of whale watching, have a bit of time out with my beloved, and just having, 3 days off. We just need a break. And
having a social Saturday and a soulful Sunday.
Absolutely, and a Freedom Friday.
Absolutely. You're going today. Yeah, okay. All right, guys. We'll catch you on the next one, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Take care.